Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are tackling one of life's absolute biggest questions. What is the point of it all? And to do that, we're diving deep into the first 5 chapters of the ancient book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to follow a seeker's journey to find lasting meaning in a world that, let's be honest, can often feel pretty temporary and absurd.
Okay, so the book kicks off with this, wow, talk about a stark and famous line. Not exactly a cheerful start, is it? The key word here is vanity. Now, in the original Hebrew, this doesn't mean being conceited. It's more like vapor, a fleeting puff of smoke. It just perfectly sets the stage for a deep investigation into how temporary everything in life really is.
So our journey begins with this figure, the preacher. Tradition holds that this is a wise king, someone like Solomon, looking out at the world from his throne in Jerusalem. And his first job, as he sees it, is to diagnose the core problem of existence.
The first place he looks is the natural world, a place we often go to for inspiration, right? But what he sees is just a series of repetitive, endless cycles. The sun rises just to set again. The wind blows around and around. All the rivers flow into the sea, but the sea never gets full. It's all this constant motion that seems to lead absolutely nowhere.
Well, watching nature go in circles like that leads him to a huge question about human life. If everything is just a cycle, what's the actual point of all our hard work? He asks what lasting profit we really get from our constant toil under the sun, and that phrase, under the sun, is a huge clue. It basically means looking at life from a purely earthly perspective, without God in the picture. It's a question that feels just as real today when you think about the daily grind.
So naturally, the preacher turns to wisdom, hoping to find an answer there. But what he finds is, well, it's pretty startling. He concludes that the more you learn and the wiser you become, the more you realize just how broken the world is and how little you can actually do to fix it. So even a noble goal like knowledge just ends up making you more aware of life's pain.
Now, after laying out this pretty bleak diagnosis, the preacher doesn't just give up. Nope. Instead, he starts a series of personal experiments to try and find a solution. And his first test, an all-out, no-holds-barred pursuit of pleasure and personal achievement.
I mean, this guy holds nothing back. As a king with basically unlimited resources, he dives into every pleasure you can imagine. Parties, wine, massive building projects. He piles up huge amounts of wealth, silver and gold, and he surrounds himself with the best entertainment of the day. He's basically trying to build his own personal paradise right here on Earth. And after he's done it all, after he's achieved everything a person could possibly want, he takes a look around and gives his verdict. And what is it? Completely empty. The original text calls it vexation of spirit, which is just a poetic way of saying it's like chasing after the wind. That deep satisfaction he thought he'd find, it just wasn't there.
So even after his big experiment with pleasure turns out to be a bust, he goes back and re-examines wisdom, and he realizes something crucial. A wise person might navigate life a little better than a fool, sure, but they both end up in the exact same place, the grave. Death is the great equalizer. And from this earthly point of view, it makes the pursuit of wisdom seem just as pointless as the pursuit of pleasure.
Okay, so after hitting dead ends with both pleasure and worldly wisdom, the preacher's perspective starts to shift. In chapter 3, he begins to look beyond just the human experience to think about the nature of time itself and, maybe, a divine order behind it all.
And this is where we see a major change in his thinking. He introduces this really powerful idea that there's a divine, sovereign order to the universe. Life might seem totally chaotic and random to us down here, but from a higher perspective, everything has its proper place and its appointed time.
You've probably heard this famous poem. It illustrates that divine order perfectly. It lays out all these opposites: a time to be born, a time to die, a time to weep, a time to laugh. And the point is that all of these experiences, the good and the bad, are part of a much larger, divinely balanced plan that is completely out of our hands.
And this gets to a really deep tension in the human experience. The preacher says God has actually placed a sense of eternity, this longing for the big picture, right inside our hearts. We want to understand it all. But at the same time, our human perspective is way too limited to ever fully grasp God's grand design from start to finish.
So, faced with the fact that he can't control the grand cosmic clock, the preacher finds his first real glimmer of meaning. He concludes that the ability to find simple joy in our daily lives, in our food, our drink, our work, isn't something we can achieve by striving for it. It's something we receive. It is a gift from God. Having found this new perspective on his relationship with God and time, the preacher now shifts his focus. He moves from the philosophical to the social, and starts observing how people actually interact with each other in this often painful world.
And man, his observations are sharp. He looks around and he sees deep sorrow and injustice, the oppressed who have no one to comfort them. He also sees a work culture that's just fueled by envy, where people are working their fingers to the bone not for some purpose, but just to one-up their neighbor. And he calls this competitive rat race just another form of vanity.
But then, in contrast to all that lonely oppression and isolated striving, he discovers a profound and really practical source of good in the world: human connection. He declares, simply and powerfully, that two are better than one. Companionship is better than going it alone.
And he's super practical about it. He breaks down the benefits. Hey, if you fall, there's someone to lift you up. If you're cold, you can share warmth. If you're attacked, you can stand together. The conclusion is clear. Community isn't just a nice idea. It's a vital survival strategy in a tough world. All right, in this final part of his initial search, the preacher starts to pull all these threads together. He moves from just observing to offering clear, practical wisdom on how to live a meaningful life in a world that is still, fundamentally, under the sun. And he gives us this really clear set of principles. It's about humility before God, listening more than you speak. It's about integrity, keeping your word. And it's about contentment, recognizing that chasing money is a trap that will never satisfy you, and that even something as simple as a good night's sleep is a gift to be treasured.
And this is maybe the biggest takeaway so far. He totally reframes his entire conclusion. After searching for meaning and pleasure, wisdom and work, he realizes the crucial point. It's not our achievements or our stuff that brings joy. Real joy comes from God's gift of being able to enjoy them. Without that gift, all the wealth in the world is totally useless.
So this leaves us with a really provocative thought, doesn't it? Through 5 chapters of intense, honest searching, the preacher has moved from despair to a kind of practical wisdom for living well day to day. He's found a measure of contentment. But if everything under the sun is ultimately just a puff of smoke, his search for a truly lasting, eternal purpose is really just beginning. What lies beyond today? That's the question he's going to keep exploring.